welcome to another episode of The Proud Skill Worker. Today we have an opportunity to talk with Jason Barrett. Jason, how are you today?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I have an opportunity to talk with you. I know that you are currently where are you? You're in Indiana, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm currently in Indianapolis.
Okay. Where are you from, Jason? What's that distance from home for you?
I guess I call New England home right now. So Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, that area.
Are you looking for a better football team since your quarterback left? Is that why you call it home, or what's the deal?
They'll never be the same.
No, but we can move away from that pain. So, Jason, thanks again so much for being on the show. I like to kick these off by asking you just how did you get into the trades?
Well, I knew a guy. He was an electrician when I was traveling in Alaska, and he let me know about the trades. So when I got back home after my traveling trip that I had done, I was a missionary up there. When I got home from my traveling trip, I called up the local electricians union, the IBEW. I signed up with an apprenticeship and never looked back.
So you were on mission in Alaska.
Yes.
Casually bumped into an electrician who told you about what he did and set you on your career path?
Yeah, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, and I'd kind of always been fascinated by electricity, but didn't really know anything about it. I didn't have any understanding at all. Like, I didn't know how to use basic tools, any of that kind of stuff. And this guy is like, listen, kid, you sign up with the IBW, you sign up for an apprenticeship, and they'll teach you everything you want to know. And he was right.
Man, so super cool story on two sides. One, I'm really interested in your mission trip, and I really want to hear about that. So if you're comfortable having that conversation, I want to have that one too. And then really interested in that this, albeit random person, was the catalyst to your current career. I mean, you had hundreds of people growing up in your life and family and friends and all these people who could have given you that random guy who just was there and yelled, "Hey, listen, kid, get to work and here's how."
Yeah, that's basically what happened. It was kind of funny because we were just talking with him about Jesus and the scriptures and stuff, like that kind of thing. He was very, I guess, kind of coarse, I guess, like a rough and tumble kind of guy, rough around the edges. He liked to hunt. He was one of those kind of guys. And he told me this story that he was with his electrical partner, and they were working in a cabinet, and all of a sudden something went wrong with his electrical partner, and there was an explosion, and he came out and his eyebrows had got singed off, and he was just like a cartoon, just like black all over his face. And I just remember thinking that was the funniest thing, and now look at me. Now I roast that every day.
You have your eyebrows, so you're doing better than that guy.
I am for now. I'm not his age yet.
Oh, that's great. So talk to me about, what's been the biggest challenge you've seen then? I mean, your career got started fairly simply by being just given that piece of advice. Hey, go to the IBW and get into it. They'll teach you. What's been the biggest challenge you faced, Jason?
Well, that's a interesting question. So I guess I would say that probably the biggest challenge I faced was learning to kind of relax a little bit about having to know everything, because as an electrician, when you're troubleshooting and when you're doing installations, you're the guy that's supposed to know everything. And if you do it wrong, there's usually dire consequences. It's not like something just breaks. Usually there's some safety involved. So it can tend to be kind of stressful. But when I realized I had to relax a little bit and realize, hey, you know what? Teach yourself how to do this and then do it right. I really became a lot better at my job.
What part of your career do you feel like you were able to hone that in at? Because, relaxing and being more comfortable in your own skills and comfortable teaching yourself is a hard thing to learn. So at what point in your career did you just decide, hey, this is what I'm doing? Where were you at? What were you doing when that moment dawned on you of what you needed to do?
Well, I was actually talking with this old timer, and he was one of those guys that he kind of refused to share any of his knowledge. And I was talking about something that I had taught myself And he was very much kind of a grouchy, angry gentleman. I don't think you've ever heard of anyone like that in the trades before. He was kind of upset that I had learned this thing. And I realized that he didn't know anything what I was talking about, but he was still successful. I was like, I thought that this was something we were expected to know, but I had taught myself how to do this thing. And he also knew quite a bit of stuff. But I realized at that moment, I was just on the cusp of, hey, you know what? A lot of times guys act like they know a lot of stuff because that's the expectation that they know a lot of stuff. But really, maybe they don't know as much, and they're learning because the technology is constantly evolving. And while they have a great foundation of experience and knowledge, because of the fact that technology moves so fast, it's not possible for them to know everything. So that's kind of when I started to understand, hey, you come up on a new problem, you've never seen this before. Well, my job is to figure it out. My job isn't to know before I even get there. Some things, yeah, I should know that, but most things that I encounter, I'm probably going to have to teach myself.
You've mentioned a few times expectations, and I'm curious to know if, as you've been around, do you think that those are real expectations or your own perceived expectations or industry perceived expectations that, hey, the electrician's got to know everything? Or is it like, do you genuinely feel like that's real? Or do you think it's people projecting, hey, you have to know because I don't, on you?
I don't know, but I do know that the pressure is real sometimes. And it's not just internal; it is external. So there's very often times when I'm out there, I'm relaxed, I'm ready to work on this problem. It's like, hey, let's break out the manual, and guys are like, we got to get this running. Like, oh my gosh, So it can be pretty stressful. But I think one of the things that I have learned is that the more relaxed you are, the more chill you are. Hey, we're going to figure this out. Don't worry about it. It actually really helps bring the stress level of everyone else around down too. So to kind of wrap up your question, I think that the thing that's helped me the most is to really just try to relax. You don't want to be really tense when you're working with 480 volts that could, kill you. I mean, it can be kind of nervous, but you don't want to be taut as a string when you're working with that stuff.
Yeah, I think you're the barometer for your own workload, right? I mean, if you go in and you're stressed and frazzled and out of control with frustration and trying to get it handled immediately, you can safely assume that project's going to get out of hand or raise your stress level. If you go in, like you said, level-headed, ready to approach it, just willing to go, I don't really know yet, but I'm figured out. Things tend to work themselves out a little better. So
yeah, I would agree with that.
I want to talk about some of the roles you've had in your career, because you said you jumped in through IBW. What's that progression been like? Because right now you're an electrical and controls technician. I mean, you're in a pretty high level role. So how did you get there? You're fairly young, Jason. There's people who in the industry right now are looking to have the skills you have, who are looking to grow into the roles you are in. So let's talk about the linear path that you've taken in your career and see if we can help some people with their next step for a minute.
Yeah. So when I joined the apprenticeship, it was as an installer in industrial environments. Worked for a lot of different factory environments, paper mills, windmill farms, microchip manufacturing processes. It was usually just dropping power and maybe running cables and running conduit. But I also got to experience installation of a lot of controls units. So like fire alarm systems, nurse call systems, security systems, and all of this generally being in an industrial environment. So a lot of it was exposure. One of the things that I found really helped me was to ask the questions of the more experienced guys around me. Hey, do you know what this is? Do you know what that is? And usually they could answer. And I was, I think, fortunate enough to be with a group of guys that they were humble enough to say, hey, if I didn't know what this was, I'm not going to lie to you about it. Like, I'm going to tell you, I don't know what this is. I've never seen anything like this before. We're just putting it in and maybe we can figure out what it is. So there was a moment in that time frame when we were hooking up a shunt trip breaker to an elevator, and I was staring at this diagram. I'm just like, I don't I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know what any of these symbols mean. I had not quite jumped into my blueprint class, and I think the old guy I was working with, he was probably like 107 or something like that, and he just he was like, I think he saw the look on my face. He's like, "Kid, listen, I've never seen one of these before. I've been doing this for 40 years, but we're going to figure it out." And that's exactly what we did. We hooked it up. We figured it out the right way, and we didn't explode the elevator. So I think that was a success. But that kind of has stuck with me. That was like 10, 12 years ago that happened. And that's really always stuck with me, was that moment.
Yeah, I mean, he's only 119 now, so hopefully he goes back and checks on that elevator every now and again. So industrial installer, large scale exposure, moving into that next role. What's that look like?
So after that, I signed up with a local plastics factory. I wanted to be in controls. Like, that is what I wanted to do. So I took a job as one of their operational leads because their electrician positions were all filled. And within a couple months, I took the position with the understanding that they would grant me the electrician position when it opened up, because they were all filled. So once that opened up, it was only a couple months later that I jumped into that position. So that's kind of how I got in the field, of the controls. I already had the experience with electrical installations, and this company, they gave me a chance to jump into the control side, even though most of my experience with PLCs and robotics had only been installs. I had not done much troubleshooting or online programming or anything like that.
And that led you into, where you are now, like you said, in controls. So what was that shift like to go from installs to maintenance? Because they're two very different worlds. I mean, the machinery is the same, but it's very different to install a new machine and then troubleshoot supposed to be working, not working machine. So what's the difference in those two worlds? How'd you get what's the shift like?
So it was a bigger learning curve than I thought it was going to be. But again, it was one of those secrets that I eventually learned, like, hey, most of the people in this field, they don't know as much as you expect them to know. Like, the expectation should be, hey, this is new technology, you need to learn how to figure it out. Not, hey, you're supposed to know before you even come to the problem. So a lot of that was me learning and gaining experience and learning how the machines worked. And I didn't really have what you would say any formal education in the troubleshooting and PLC stuff, aside from a couple classes I took during my apprenticeship. But the guys that I worked with most of them were very willing to share their knowledge and very helpful in that regard. And if they didn't know, they generally tell me, hey, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this does. I've never seen this before. They installed this on Friday on an afternoon, and then they went home, and we're out here figuring out why it doesn't work, and we don't even know what it is or what it does. So, that's the kind of environment that electrical troubleshooting guy has to work with. And so once you accept, the expectation is that you learn, not that you know before you even understand, then it really, helped. It really helped me a lot to get better.
That's great. I'm trying to get my head around what it looks like with the skills gap, Jason. Because what you're doing now requires a higher level of skills than even the electrical work you were doing when you first started. And a little higher level of skills than the operator role that you were in waiting for your electrician job. So we keep hearing about this fourth industrial revolution and machines taking over people's jobs. But here I am talking to you, and you're telling me that on Friday they installed it, and by Sunday you're fixing it. So that machine's not taking anyone's job right now. What does that skills gap look like for you? Does it require a higher level of skills, or just a change in the mindset and how you're troubleshooting an actual piece of machinery into that PLC or the automated side? I'm trying to understand that better.
Well, I think what I ended up doing a lot was sitting down and reading manuals, because when you're installing like a new robot, or doing maintenance on a robot, or troubleshooting a robot, the steps are all going to be different. But if you're reading the manual and it teaches you, hey, this is what the robot does, this is what it is, this is how you program it, you can really teach yourself a lot. And then there's also these, like, I guess I don't know what I would call them, these sort of hand-me-down knowledge tricks that you learn. Oh, hey, when I push this button and this button in that specific order, then the machine behaves this certain way and it does what you want it to do, like it does a backflip and then flips over that way. And, oh, okay, now it's all fixed. Like the whole thing's reset. We'll just pretend that none of that happened. So you learn a lot of those kind of tricks, like that they don't make any sense and then they just kind of happen. And then the second part of it is a lot of it's just exposure. Like you're just around this stuff. So you're learning what the stuff is. You're learning what the stuff does. You might not know how it works, but a lot of it's, like, oh, what is this thing? Oh, I think I've seen this before. Hey, this isn't completely foreign when I come up to this next time. Oh, I've seen how this behaves before. I know that's like really, really general. I don't know if it answers your question very well.
I get I know where you're at, and I'm trying to understand like the licensing and certification and skills that you had to develop, the actual hard skills you had to develop that we could give somebody else a guide to follow what you're doing. Like, are you currently a licensed electrician?
Yes, I'm licensed in 3 states.
Okay. So, that's awesome, by the way. That's huge. What
Thank
3
you.
states? Just because I like to give you a chance to brag.
Vermont, New Hampshire, and Alaska.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, they're all really close together. Why not throw Alaska in there?
I lived in Alaska for a couple of years, and then I just came down from Alaska to sign on with skill work. And so that's how I got my license up there. And I finished my apprenticeship in Vermont and New Hampshire.
Oh, great. Well, I'm happy that Skillwork was able to get you out of Alaska, unless you liked your 6-month daylight and your 6-month nighttime. I guess, like, I'm trying to understand, like if right now a kid coming out of a tech school or a 2-year college or a 2-year associate's degree in automation and manufacturing went, hey, what do I need to do next to get into full-scale PLC troubleshooting? What would you tell that? What would you tell that individual?
Yeah, just jump in, man. Like, you gotta be willing to be your own teacher, because no one in this field, no one else is going to train you. You have to train yourself. And if you do have a guy who's willing to share your knowledge, you're going to benefit from that. But I mean, I think a lot of guys, when they first get in the field, and I feel that I'm going to say this because I felt this way too, like when they work around some of these guys who are unwilling to share their knowledge, and they're like, oh, you're just a young kid. You can't possibly understand what it is that I've learned in my life. I've been around for 70 years or whatever, and you can't possibly. Usually that's because they don't actually know. And maybe what they know is they know a very small niche, and they guard that niche because they see it as their own personal, like, job security. And the fact of the matter is that niche probably isn't really that complex. So if you can be willing to be one of those guys that teaches yourself how to do PLC troubleshooting, that teaches yourself how to read technical manuals and how to read blueprints, because even if you take a blueprint class, every engineer designs them differently. So you're going to have to be teaching yourself, even if you take a formal class. If you can be one of those guys who's able to read a manual and then move that to your hands, from your eyes to your hands, you will succeed. You will, because that's what this field is.
Yeah, I think you bring up something that we've talked about on this show a couple times, about like the trades eating their young and why it's so hard at times to train in the industry. And so I want to put a challenge out to you and all the young maintainers who are up and coming and doing really well is don't be that trainer. Don't be that individual who comes across that way. So my challenge to you, Jason, is be the guy who goes, hey kid, we're going to figure it out. Not the guy who goes, you better figure it out. I'm going to get out of here. So I think that's a mindset in the industry that we have to be a part of. We have to be a part of that shift where people want to work more together and less be the expert on their own. So, I think that's a huge call to arms for anybody who is listening, is if you're in an industry where you feel like, everyone sticks around for a year or two and then leaves and you just can't figure out why, look around and bring those people under your wing and train them and mentor them. It's very similar to my time in the Marine Corps, frankly, is when you join, they give you a mentor and they give you someone who's going to be there for you and help you all of the time. And it's because it's new, it's scary, it's different, and everybody handles those things a little differently. So I think it's great that you point those things out, Jason. And I really appreciate you coming on and doing all that for us, because it's not necessarily easy to look around at your own industry and go, hey, we got some problems around here. How are we going to fix them? But being candid is the way.
Well, I am a troubleshooter.
Find the error. I found the fault, he says.
Yes.
So here at the end, Jason, what I like to do is I like to open the floor, give you 3, 5, 10 minutes to just get on your soapbox and tell everybody in the industry the one thing you wish they could hear from you. If you could have all of the automation and controls technicians in the industry, all the electricians, anybody, and just one thing you wish everybody would either get on the same page of or hear from your mouth, what is that one thing you would say?
Yeah, so your family is the most important thing. You know, this trade's really cool. There's a lot of awesome opportunity, but my wife and my kids, they are number one. Nothing comes between me and them. And there's always opportunities for overtime. You can always make more money. The time with your kids, you're never going to get back. I'm really personally am glad that I have that mindset. You know, maybe that's something that future employers don't want to hear. I don't really know, but my personal family is the most important thing to me.
Amen to that. I think that's most of our why. If we honestly want to be real about what we're doing and why we do it, it's our family. And it's huge that you're willing to say this, hey, that's first and foremost for me. So I appreciate you doing that. I know that it resonates with me. I know it's going to resonate with others. So that's just huge. I think that's who you are, Jason. I think that probably ties very easily into the mission you were on, even when you were in Alaska, which brought you to your calling now. I think that brought you to Skill Work, which you know who we are. Everybody here knows who we are and what we stand for. So it's been a blessing to have you on the show. I'd love to have you back on the show in the future. We're looking to do a group podcast together where we can get 3 or 4 guys and just have a big roundtable conversation about, hey, what's the industry like today? So we'll look to do that. Jason, thank you so much. And I want to give a huge thank you to our guests. As you guys know, Jason, and to all those who are listening, who are subscribing, who are following us, who are making the Proud Skill Worker what it is. Continue to share the content. This is impacting people's lives. We hear about it. Comment on the videos. Reach out if you want to be a guest on the show. We'd love to have you. You don't have to be a part of the organization here at Skill Work to be on the show. I'd love to have a conversation with you, bring you on and hear your thoughts. So thank you again for all of you who have watched, and thank you so much, Jason. Have a good day.